Dear students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. Under the subject of Indian culture, we have the paper Prehistoric and Protohistoric Cultures of India. Under this, we have the module Types of Megaliths in India. This module was written by Dr. Sri Kumara Menon. I will be presenting this particular module. I am Selva Kumar, Assistant Professor in the Department of Epigraphy and Archaeology, Tamil University, Tanjavur. Before going into the megalithic types of India, let's look into the study of material culture. What is material culture? What is typology? Actually, typology is very much related to material culture. Material culture is actually the objects that humans made right from the prehistoric time. Material culture consists of several artifacts produced by people in different points of time. These artifacts are important sources for history. Apart from this, we have written documents which appear after the introduction of writing. So before writing, people were just living their life, producing artifacts and subsisting on various means of subsistence. They were producing lot of artifacts, they were thinking, and they were leading full-fledged life. However, we do not have any written evidence for what they did. So basically, we have to study the material culture, the objects that they produced and used and abandoned, which are found in archaeological context, to understand how they lived. That is why typology is very important. Typology is used for dating in archaeology and also understanding the functions of object. What is a type? The chair in which I am sitting represents a type. You must be sitting on a chair now. Probably it belongs to a different type. Type actually represents a kind of form, a distinct form. One form different from other forms leads to two different types. Types are very important in the classification of material remains. Why there is variation in types? There could be several reasons for this. Cultural reasons, because each culture produces its own form which becomes its own signature. Types are very important in understanding the cultural context. That is why we have to understand the typology of the megaliths. The megalithic types varies region to region. However, there is also similarity in the types. You must have already seen that the megaliths are occurring all over the world. In India, we have megaliths mainly from the peninsular India, but we also have megalithic burials in the central India and also in the Himalayan region and also in the northeastern India. These megalithic burials have several types as well as subtypes, and they are very interesting to look at. Each one of the burials is very distinct and it has a distinct form. By studying the typology, we can define the cultural region. So that is the purpose of studying typology. Sometimes we may not be able to understand the types and their significance. When an archaeologist sees the types, they look very distinct. That is why they classify them under a particular type. In this particular image, we see several types. Yourself can understand that they are looking different, although their function was very similar. The one that you find on the left top is called Menhir. Menhir is actually a planted stone. Next to it, in the center on top, is Sarcophagus. It is like a coffin, it is like a box and it has multiple legs. The one on the top extreme right is dolmen, a dolmen and with a porthole. You can see a small hole here, it is called porthole. In the lower row on the left, what you see could be a cist. Cist burial is actually a small chamber created using stone slabs. It has 4 slabs on the 4 sides and 1 slab as a capstone on the top. The cist burials also have the portholes. The one in the center lower row is called Kudakkal or Kudakkal. It is an endemic form found mainly in Kerala. One on the lower right is called stone circle. Such circles are found very commonly in India and many parts of the world. These are the different types of megaliths which are commonly occurring in southern India. You can ask why there is so much of variation in the types. What is the reason for this variation? These are some of the issues addressed by archaeologists. Is it because of the local raw material, or is it because of the cultural factors that certain people wanted a distinct type because they belong to a higher social strata? Even now, you can see in the wedding or any other function that we have a VIP chair. When there is a VIP, we distinguish his or her status by keeping a separate chair which has more features or which may be more decorative. That is how we use artifact to distinguish the function or the social status of the people. In a classroom, the chairs of the teachers will be different in design than the chairs of the students. Clearly, in the classroom, we see the variation in types. The objectives of this particular module is to understand the main megalithic types seen in different parts of India. We also have to understand their broad distribution in different parts of India. So you must have already been familiar with the term megalith and its distribution and significance. Megaliths are actually burial monuments that were erected in India from about 1500 BC. The megalithic burial tradition continued even till the early historic period, maybe 3rd, 4th century of the Common Era or Christian era. However, there is also evidence that the megalithic tradition was practiced by a few groups of people in the remote hilly areas even during the medieval and late medieval and modern periods. Even today, there are certain communities who erect these burials using stones. They may not be very big in size, still we call them as megaliths. In northeastern India, we still have the tradition of erecting megaliths for various purposes. Again, we have to divide the megaliths into 2 categories. One is the burial, the second is memorial. The burial is the one which actually has the mortal remains of the dead or associated remains. Memorials are just stone planted without any kind of associated mortal or physical remains of the dead. And the megaliths were erected for various purposes. Sometimes they were erected in a separate area known as the burial or cremation ground. Sometimes they were erected probably at the place of the dead person, where a person died. It may be because sometimes we find these burial monuments in isolated contexts. Megaliths can be broadly studied by looking at their features. We have certain features visible on the surface. Certain features of the megaliths are below the surface. If we want to completely study the typology of the megaliths, we need to excavate. By looking at only the surface features, we may not understand a megalithic burial in complete. For example, at several sites, we have only the stone circle on top. when you dig the stone circle, you may find a sarcophagus. Therefore, stone circle alone cannot form a burial type. Stone circle with sarcophagus is a proper typology. Sometimes we may find urn burials independently. Actually, terracotta urns which are pyriform in shape, actually in the shape of a beetroot. They are found and they have a lid on top. Sometimes they are found independently, sometimes they are found within a Cairn circle. Therefore, we have to correctly describe a burial as a Cairn circle with urn burial, Cairn circle with sarcophagus, Cairn circle with cist burial. Sometimes Cairn circles also have one tall stone as menhir. Therefore, we need to carefully describe the megalithic burial types. They are not as simple as they look on the surface. Sometime in Kerala, when they excavated a Cairn or stone circle, they found a rocket cave beneath. If you do not excavate this particular burial type, you will describe it just as a stone circle. Only when you excavate, you will understand that there is a rocket cave chambers beneath these. So therefore, we need to have a proper excavations and proper observation to understand the megalithic burial types. So we have to look into the surface markers as well as what is buried beneath. Sometimes a cist burial just appears a little bit on the surface. When a cist burial fully on the surface, above a rock surface, we call it dolmen. Sometimes the term Dolmenoid Cist are also used because the cist burial is half buried and half above the surface. These are called subtypes within the dolmens. Therefore, in the classification of megalithic burials, we have to look at the main types and also the variation. Therefore, the ideal thing would be to look at the photograph from various angles. Only then we can understand the megalithic burial types. We have several features which are buried in the megalithic burial types. We can classify them into pit burials, cist burials, urn burials, sarcophagus burials. Pit burials are simple pit burials without any receptacles. That means without any urn or sarcophagus. They simply dug a pit and they placed the mortal remains. These types of burials were perhaps the earliest. We find evidence for the pit burials even from the Mesolithic context. This was the earliest mode of burial. You dig a pit and they then place the mortal remains in the pit. Another possibility is that sometime within the pit burial, people might have placed a wooden coffin. If the wooden coffin is decomposed, we may not find any evidence for that. There is also a possibility that people were using wooden coffin or wooden casket, or sometime they may have kept the body wrapped in a cloth. But we cannot understand all these without proper study and analysis of the materials or ethnographic parallels. Cist burials are the next categories. You can also include dolmen under this category. Cist burials are actually formed by placing loose stone slabs in the four sides and one slab on top. Urn burials are another important burial types. Probably urn burials were practiced right from the Chalcolithic period, probably from the day humans began to make pottery. They can be considered as the second oldest after the pit burials. Urns are actually pots or jars made out of terracotta. People made clay jars or pots and then they fired them. As a result, they got a jar which is called urn. And the next category is sarcophagus. Sarcophagus is like a bathtub or like a coffin. It is made of terracotta. Sometimes people used these kind of sarcophagus for the burials. We also find this particular type in large number. Now let us look into the cist burial. What is a cist? Cist is an underground stone-lined chamber, may be marked by Cairn or Menhir or stone circle on the surface. One of the stone slabs forming the side of the chamber orthostat may have a porthole in it. Each slab is called orthostat. They are placed in each direction. The particular image you have is from Bandipur, from Karnataka. We have only 3 slabs planted. We do not know if it originally had a capstone. The stone that is on top is called capstone. Probably that is lost. Here we have only 3 slabs, and it is almost buried, maybe 10 or 50 centimeters or above the ground. That is why it is called cist burial. If the same cist is almost 90 or 100% above the ground, we would call it a dolmen. So these stones were simply dressed. They did not do a fine dressing. They just simply collected the stone slab. Sometimes they used fire and iron chisels to remove the slabs from the granite, and then they used. One of the important point to be noted here is that people could make these stone slabs only after the arrival of iron. Though scholars say sometimes they could have used heat as well as wooden pegs to remove slabs from the granite rock. Probably people started making these slabs for the burials only after the arrival of iron, because these burials are often found with iron objects in southern India. This is one example of a cist burial. You find several examples of cist burials, several variations. In some areas where they do not have rocks which can be made into fine slabs, they have simply used huge boulders as cist. Sometimes you can find this in the southern part of Andhra Pradesh and also in northern part of Tamil Nadu, close to the east coast. One of the important site here is the Sanur, which was excavated by Archaeological Survey of India, where you find cist burials made out of huge or large boulders. You do not find any evidence for fine or thin sliced slabs here. Urn burial was one of the common burial types because it is easy to make urn. The effort required to make an urn is less when compared to making a cist burial or dolmens. Some of the dolmens and cist burials are as big as a room. Sometimes they may be 10 feet in length, 10 feet in width, 5-6 feet in height, or sometime more. To make such a large cist burial, one needs a lot of labor. However, the urns are very easily available in the market. Probably people collected them or bought them from the potters and simply made a burial. Again, we need to ask why there are so many variations in burial types. Perhaps it is because of the belief of the people who were interned there and also the attitude of the people who made these burials. Sometimes people attach so much importance to the dead and they have so much affection towards the dead, they wanted to make a very elaborate burial. Sometimes the dead people had a lot of network, lot of relatives, lot of social association. As a result, many people got together and they wanted to make a large burial. Sometimes an individual who did not have much relations or much social association was offered a very simple burial. Sometimes people bury the dead very simply without much ritual. Probably these kind of people preferred urn burials. We have evidence of urn burials right from the Chalcolithic or even from the Neolithic times. Here in this image you see a model created at the museum to assist the students to understand how exactly an urn burial looks. Here you can see in the section an urn within a pit. On top of it they have placed a stone as a capstone. This stone is used as a ceiling. Sometimes instead of capstone they have used a lid or terracotta jar to close the urn. People felt the urn has to be closed because after closing or sealing the urn, they put lot of stones or soil so that the urn should not be disturbed. Generally, people felt the urns or the burials are the places where the dead sleeps and they should not be disturbed. That is why they were placed at locations away from the houses or away from the residential areas. Because of this reason, in the ancient time, people never disturbed the burials. Even in Kerala today, sometimes people worship these burials and they say that they are sacred and they should not be disturbed. That is why we still have many burials preserved in many parts of India. However, several burials have been destroyed because of the developments and modern activities. People who initially gave a lot of respect to the burials later on wanted land for agriculture and cultivation. They simply used the bulldozers to destroy them. Actually, these burials are very important records of our ancient culture and we should preserve them, or at least we should document them. You find a lot of variations in these burial types. Sometimes an important burial type may be just destroyed by a bulldozer without proper documentation. If you visit rural parts of India, you can see these burials everywhere. Mainly in southern India, they are occurring in large number. This particular urn burial was found at Arikemedu, near Arikemedu. Arikemedu was an important Indo-Roman trading port of the early historic period. Just 100 meters away from this site, they have found evidence of urn burial. They are found in the residential area where people were digging for house construction. They came across this particular burial. So these kind of burials can be found in different parts of India. Even today, when people dig for agricultural or cultivation or for household purposes, they find these urns. Sometimes they have skeletal remains, sometimes they have valuable objects. Sometimes people simply throw these skeletal remains, but they can tell a lot about our past lives. Therefore, if you find any skeletal remains from the archaeological site, if you find any of them from the accidental digging, you should report them to physical anthropologists who can study their various anthropological aspects as well as biological aspects to understand the past ways of life. What you see here in this image is a sarcophagus burial. Sarcophagus is actually like a bathtub. It can be compared to modern coffin. In the megalithic period, they had multiple legs. They also had lid on top. Some of the sarcophaguses are very interesting. Some of them are in the form of animals. They are called theroanthropomorphic figures. In Andhra Pradesh, at a site called Shankavaram, they have found a sarcophagus which resembles a male goat, that is ram. This particular specimen is kept at Madras Museum. In Kerala, they found a sarcophagus in the form of a cow. Likewise, we find occasionally certain sarcophagi in the form of animal remains. We don't know why they created a sarcophagus for some people. The tradition of sarcophagus is found in many parts of South India. However, they are more commonly found in southern part of Andhra Pradesh and northern part of Tamil Nadu and also in Pudukkottai, and in other regions they are found here and there. These sarcophagus are found sometime within a Cairn circle. They are very interesting kind of burial type. Perhaps the people felt that the dead had to be taken to another world. That is why they put them in this kind of receptacles with legs. However, this can be just an imagination. We don't know what really meant and why they chose sarcophagus for some individuals. This example is from the site of Muthrapalayam. You can see here 5 legs of 3 rows, and it probably had a lid which was damaged during the excavation, you can notice a beautiful decoration appearing on the exterior surface above. Probably in the ancient times, people were tying the flower garlands around these kinds of jars or even urn burials. Later on, that tradition was continued in ceramics. Probably because of this reason, you have this kind of decoration on top. Let's look into the surface markers of the megalithic burials. We have several surface markers indicating the existence of megalithic burials. Surface markers are those that you can see on the surface. Menhir is a surface marker. Sometimes you find a menhir as a tall stone, sometimes 2 to 3 feet in height, sometimes 7 or 8 or 9 feet in height. Sometimes it looks like a dressed slab, sometimes it is a huge undressed slab. Then you have another category called Boulder Circle, which has several boulders arranged in a circle. A boulder circle may have a different kind of internal structure, but on the surface you can see only a circle of boulders. Cairn is actually referring to a heap of stone. Sometimes people just place a heap of stones to indicate the existence of a burial. We can ask why they have to keep a surface marker for a megalithic burial. Why do they have to keep a surface marker? If they bury the dead, that is enough. But one important point is they wanted to convey a message to the visitors and to the other people that there exists a burial below the surface. It is a kind of communicating device, so that when a next person comes and buries another dead, he or she will not dig into the same spot. That is why the surface markers are very important. Sometimes people created a large surface markers so that people can look at them from far away distance. They can be compared to the temple towers in modern India. When you look at the temple tower, you immediately recognize that there is a temple. Similarly, when you see a long, tall menhir, you can immediately understand that it is a sacred place, a person is resting there. So for this kind of communication purpose, people created these surface markers. The next category is Dolmenoid Cist. Dolmenoid Cists are a burial types in which we have the stone chambers partly buried and partly above the surface. Dolmen is another category. It is a variant of Dolmenoid Cist, but here the dolmen is completely above the surface. Dolmens are often found on the rock surfaces, so that they cannot dig into the rock surface and bury. That is why they place the dolmens on the surface directly. However, probably they kept some kind of mortal remains inside the dolmen. They did not want this to be eroded because of the rain. That is why they had given a stone circle and some rubble package for the dolmens, which are found in isolated hilltops. You can find such packed dolmens in the hilly areas of southern India, also in Kerala. Another important burial type is stone alignment or avenue. Sometimes instead of one single stone, people plant stones in a row and sometimes in multiple rows to form something like an avenue. These burial types are found in Karnataka. They are also interesting. We do not know why people created such varieties of monument covering a large area. Probably they were associated with multiple individuals who lost their lives, probably, or they were associated with the memorials of several groups of people. We do not know their real significance. We do not know if they really had any kind of astronomical significance also. Apart from these common forms, we have certain endemic forms which are restricted to certain regions. For example, we have Kudakkal and Topikal, which are mainly found in Kerala. We will be discussing them separately in another module. Now, let us look at the images of some of the burial types. What you see here is a menhir of very short height. Menhir is actually a single erect slab or boulder marking the spot of a burial or serving as a memorial. Maybe it is a part of stone alignment too. See here you have to note the term burial as a memorial. Burial is separate, memorial is separate. Burial actually refers to the place where the mortal remains of the dead is found. Memorial is just a stone placed in memory without any evidence for actual physical or mortal remains. Sometimes these menhirs could be also part of the alignments. If people have removed the other menhirs, you will not find them. Therefore, we need to be very careful when we document them at a particular site. When you find one menhir, you should look for other menhirs and try to understand if they are forming any alignment or any other particular pattern. Sometime when you explore a large area, you may be able to understand the pattern in their distribution. What you see here is a tall menhir, one from Karnataka, other from Bursahom. They are tall erected stones. Actually the term Nadukal, which is sometimes referred to as Virakal or hero stone, evolved from this menhir. Initially the menhirs were erected for all kinds of people probably, and later on only heroes were offered such stones. We can say some people stand tall. Probably they had this idea, some people stood tall even after the dead. We don't know if the megalithic people erected menhir only for certain kind of people who did heroic deeds. Unfortunately, we don't have any written records. It is also possible that the megalithic people erected such stones only for certain type of important people, because they are not found in large number. They are found in very few number. In a burial site, when you find Cairn circles, urn burials, sarcophagi, you find sometime only one or two menhirs. What does it indicate? Probably these people were very important, but we cannot confirm it unless we have other forms of evidence. Boulder Circle, this is also another important burial type. It is found very commonly all over southern India, because at the areas where people did not find other kinds of material, they simply use these stones to mark the burial. They are circular in shape and they don't require much effort to be dressed or to be worked. People simply collected the stones and placed around a burial. It may have a pit burial or chest burial or other forms of burial types below. What you see here is actually a heap of cane within a stone circle. Sometimes people placed lot of cane packing between the circles. We don't know why. At some site we find only a simple boulder circle or stone circle. One of the reason could be the local terrain. The local terrain, when it is hard, it is difficult to dig a deeper pit into it. That is why people simply place the burial and other grave goods just after digging a little bit or just on the surface. Then they place the stone circles and they had to pack the burial with rubble or small stones so that they will not be disturbed by the activities of rain and other factors. That is the reason why we are finding these kind of packing of rubble at certain sites. This is treated as a separate burial type. You find this kind of burial types all over southern India. This particular example comes from Vidarbha in Maharashtra. Another example of cane with slab circles, and you can see the loose cane. They are found all over. Sometimes they are so disturbed you may not be able to understand their existence. You have to carefully look into the area to identify them. These two examples are from Karnataka. sometimes when people place few heaps of stones, limited stones, they are easily destroyed by the later activities. Only by detailed surface exploration you can identify these cairns. Sometimes you may have to actually excavate them to identify if there is any burial really beneath the surface. This is a Dolmenoid Cist. A Dolmenoid Cist is a rectangular chamber erected, partially sunk in the ground and made by 3 or 4 vertical slabs. They are called orthostats. One end of these slabs are set in the ground. The other end is above, surmounted by a capstone. In case of closed chambers, one of the orthostats may have a circular, semicircular or U-shaped, rectangular or a crude porthole in one of the orthostats. Some of the dolmens have only just 3 stones. One entrance is open, which is actually called as an entrance or passage. Probably people felt these were the residence of the dead people. That is why they felt some entrance has to be given. Some of the dolmens have all the 4 sides closed with one slab on top, and these chambers have a porthole. What is a porthole? What is the function of the porthole? Portholes are considered to be some kind of opening for entering into the tomb. Some people believe that they could be due to the belief in soul. They think that this porthole was given for the movement of the soul into the chamber and for coming out of the chamber. We do not know whether the prehistoric people really meant the porthole for the movement of the soul. Sometimes it is said people offered some certain goods or certain objects after the erection of burial to the dead through these portholes. The portholes are facing various directions, and we do not know if the portholes orientation has any significance. However, they are not found in all the chambers. They are found in only certain chambers. We also see a lot of variation. Sometimes they are circular, sometimes they are rectangular, sometimes they are trapezoidal in shape, sometimes they are in the shape of keyhole. We don't know why people gave this porthole, but interestingly, we find such portholes in many parts of the world. But they are an interesting phenomenon in the megalithic typology. Dolmen is another important burial type. As I mentioned earlier, dolmens are found above the surface. They intentionally place the dolmens on top of the hills. Perhaps people felt they have to be noticed by travelers and people who were moving around. That is why they placed them on top of the hills. When you look at them from far away, you feel there exists a lot of houses on top of the hills. You can see such beautiful dolmens in Andhra and Karnataka and also in parts of Tamil Nadu. Especially in the Dharmaburi region of Tamil Nadu, you have several such sites with dolmens above the hillocks. They are interesting burial types, and they look like a table, and sometimes people also live in them. In the later part of history and also even today, the dolmens in hill areas are used by certain tribes for occupation. Probably during the rainy time and other times they live inside these dolmens. Some of the people call them as the houses of the Valiyas. People think that there were shorter people living at one point of time and they were using them as houses. These are just interpretations of the people. Actually, they were burial monuments. Sometimes people may have occasionally used them for resting in the rain or during the hot summer days. You also find sometimes paintings in these dolmens. We do not know if these paintings were originally done by the people who created the dolmens or by the later period people who just occupied them. We do have evidence of paintings in a few dolmens. This is another dolmen at the site of Rajan Koluru in Karnataka. You can see these dolmens were made of undressed slabs and they are jutting over a specific area. Clearly that people were demarcating certain area as the burial location. That is why we are finding them concentrated in a particular location. This is another dolmen from the site of Mallasadram near Krishnagiri. At this site you find several interesting specimens. Here you can notice that around the chamber they have planted tall stones which sometimes we can call as menhir in three directions. One direction is open. You can see these stone slabs are carved into circular shape. We don't know why they did that. This is one peculiar feature found in this particular site. You can see the porthole facing one direction. This is another dolmen with passage and porthole. Dolmens also have something like a passage which indicate that the way to enter a particular dolmen. They are also found at several sites. This is another dolmen which is made of poorly prepared slabs. You can compare this with the previous examples. In the previous example, people spent a lot of effort to carefully carve the stone slab and create a burial. In this case, we see a very makeshift burial. Even today, we can notice sometimes people create a burial for some important person with a lot of preparation. But some people are buried simply without much preparation. Probably these are the factors causing variation in the burial types in the ancient period also. Rock shelter chamber here. Here you see another variation in the burial type. Here they have created a chamber using a boulder, and sometimes they have also used the chipped stone as a packing. Sometimes you have this kind of burial types also. People are making different kinds of variation from the standard burial types. This example is from Irregular, Karnataka. Here you have a stone alignment. That means the stones are placed in an alignment in a definite geometrical pattern. So this is also one of the important burial type. However, it is not very commonly found in southern India. They are found at only a few sites. They are very important for understanding the past way of life. This particular example comes from Vibhudihalli in Karnataka. Another stone alignment. This is from Karnataka. You can notice the stones arranged in several rows. We do not know the significance, what exactly they mean, and why people erected such large number of stones. Maybe a large number of people died, they could have died, but it is open to speculation. This is another view of the stone alignment from the site of Bison Valley in Kerala. Another stone alignment from Nilaskal in Karnataka. This is the winter solstice sunset at the megalithic site in Karnataka. Here you can see this winter solstice sunset exactly falling in between. Again, we do not know if the ancient people really intended such a way, because we have to do more research to understand if they really meant or if they really placed the stone such a way that the sunset falls in between at a particular time. These are some of the endemic forms of Kerala. We have another module explaining them in detail. Here we have a rocket burial in Kerala. This is found near Thrissur. View of another opening and also entrance at the rocket site near Thrissur in Kerala. This is another endemic form called Kudakkal in Kerala. This is another endemic form called Topikal. This is found in Kerala. We will be looking at these monuments in detail later. Thank you for listening to with a lot of patience. I hope you understood the basic concepts of typology as well as the megalithic burial types. If you have any doubts or queries, you can consult the e-text, and also you can refer to the PowerPoint. There are several publications available. You can consult them too, and thank you.